The ancient Greeks venerated carelessness and freedom to a degree that would shock us today. Hippocleides was a very handsome youth of Athens. He went to Sicily to try to court the daughter of a rich tyrant there. The tyrant took him and 10 other boys hunting and tested their strength, courage, and intellect. After 10 days of competitions and dinners, Hippocleides was close to winning his bride. But then, on the last night, he threw it all away by dancing naked atop the table and shouting, "I just don't care." This phrase, Hippocleides doesn't care, became famous in Greece, and it highlights a lost virtue of those most vigorous peoples. Hippocleides did something most of us wouldn't dare. He threw away a hard-won prize and laughed. Why? Like most Greeks, Hippocleides valued complete freedom from restriction. To him, desire and fear of loss were human, but to be indifferent and vital was totally divine. This attitude of careless freedom irks the rigid moralists of both the left and the right. Most people desperately want to indoctrinate you into their experience of life and project their moral valuations on you. Be kind, they preach. Be cautious. Be hardworking. Be studious. Be outraged by injustice. Believe this. Don't believe that. Blah, blah, blah. This was not the view of the ancient Greek aristocrat. They were perhaps the most excellent people to walk the earth, and yet they were the most careless and free. How do those things go together? How can men of exceptional character be produced by a culture of such arrogance and freedom? Let's talk about divine carelessness, where it comes from, and why it was a virtue of the leaders, heroes, and gods of ancient times. This video will be investigating ancient Greece and Nietzsche's concepts of master morality. I think it's essential that we study the high points in human history, not so much to look at their world, but to learn to look at our world through their eyes. That is how a new renaissance is born. Thanks for subscribing and joining the movement. First things first, carelessness for our purposes does not mean reckless belligerence or hubris. These were warned against adamantly in most Greek myths, perhaps because there were so many goddamn Hippocleides running around naked ready to conquer the world. The carelessness I'm referring to is more akin to contempt for worry, pettiness, and baseness of spirit. I would define it as first, the courage to be free, and two, the ability to relax, and few possess this trait today. The Greeks had it in abundance though. Diogenes was a famous philosopher of ancient Corinth and Greece. He renounced wealth, fucked on the streets like an animal, and detested superficial decorum. He was a man of total freedom and power, even while living in poverty. One day, Alexander the Great came to speak with him. He was fascinated by the enigmatic character of Diogenes. Alexander asked if there's any favor he might do for the man. To that, Diogenes replied, "Move a little to the right. You are blocking my sun." Imagine if the greatest king of the world came to give you his favor. Would you have the audacity and carelessness to dismiss him with scorn? Most of us would pine and grope for any measure of his power and affection. Not Diogenes, though. Alexander was beneath him, and the best of the Greeks were free in this highest sense. Alexander the Great was so stunned by this encounter and so admired the haughtiness and grandeur of the man that he said to his followers, "But truly, if I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Diogenes exemplified a self-overcoming of the highest order. He overcame the fear of loss, the constant search for gain, and the busyness that rules most people. He shows us that you don't need money to be free, only contempt. Diogenes' relaxed carelessness was an ideal embodiment that many Greeks sought to emulate. Just look at the Sympsiums of Athens, for instance, the favorite pastime of all free men. A symposium is where citizens and guest friends get together to lounge on couches and drink wine. They would talk philosophy, politics, religion, and war. In their lounging discussions, they sought to reflect the relaxed dignity of their heroes and gods of Olympus, totally at ease and leisure, and yet intelligent and formidable. They were warriors in a garden, so to speak, reveling in the freedom and power that they had earned. This Greek idea of relaxed carelessness carries a lot of wisdom in it, and it reflects the majesty of nature and the gods. Physiologically, the most energetic and alive state is relaxed. When flesh dies, it becomes stiff and rigid. The more vital your cells are, however, the more supple they are, like a baby's skin. Healthy life in nature is relaxed and alert. It is like the lion chilling out in the sun, playing and eating, but ready to act with explosive power. Distressed life, however, is anxious and always busy. It resembles a starving lion, limping for weeks on end to find a meal. It is tight, fearful, and exhausted. The upper echelons of old societies, especially in ancient Greece and the classical world, exemplified healthy life. They were not like the overstressed and overstimulated managers, CEOs, and Elon Musks that we see today. The heroes of ancient Greece went back and forth between war, preparation for war, and divine lounging. And somewhere in between, they found the time for the greatest and most rapid philosophical and cultural advancements in history. I would argue this is because they venerated the heroic and vital life force primarily. All other virtues and values were secondary. This is the exact opposite of today. We claim to promote equality and freedom, but all we produce is a low culture of convenience and captivity. On average, we work about twice as much as the peasants of ancient Greece and Rome, and we are told to be grateful for our privilege. The lowly artisans of Athens would mock us or pity us as overworked and overstressed slaves. We lack all connection to nature and myth, and most of our people are neurotic drug addicts, fat, or mentally ill. America is no longer the land of the brave and free, but of the scared and constrained. Everyone is so scared of loss, scared of being canceled or rejected, scared of missed opportunity or what others may think, scared of not getting the girl or losing the lover or the money or the thing. Fear makes you rigid. It makes you tight. Fear is wired into the nature of low-level existence. It is critical that this is overcome for any flourishing to occur. The only way to combat the overstressed and fearful state of servitude is with relentless courage and the expansion of your powers. The power I speak of comes from following your instincts and overcoming fear and resistance heroically. I wrote a whole book on that called The Psychology of Slaying Dragons, and it's for the warriors of our generation. Ultimately, you need to develop your masculinity and prowess if you ever wish to be truly free and secure in yourself. And from inner security alone comes the power to relax. Those who gain mastery over themselves and environment naturally settle into relaxed confidence, and that is the hallmark of a developed man: relaxed masculinity and power. Unfortunately, few take this path into noble freedom because it's difficult and dangerous. So instead, they take the path of ease. As a result, they become helplessly constrained by fear, money, addictions, resistances, and whatever else they want to be a victim to. These types of people will never value carelessness and freedom, but only safety and comfort. They quickly conform, wear masks, seek pleasures, and practice public empathy to gain status amongst other slaves. This is the exact opposite of Diogenes' example, and also this is a very easy population to manipulate. When fear and neuroticism run too high, people trade what little ownership and freedoms they have for more safety. This is the hallmark of a subjugated humanity, not a free one. America was only the land of the free when it was the home of the brave. It takes great courage to actually be free, as it takes power to be careless. Part 2. Nietzsche on master morality versus slave morality. But first, a brief message from our sponsor, yours truly. Hey, I'm Christian, and I'm excited to announce that we're starting a community over on School for revolutionary thinkers, leaders, and warriors. And yes, it's free forever if you join this month. Link in the description to join. I'll see you there. Okay, back to the video. Quote, "I have often laughed at the weaklings who thought themselves good because they had no claws." Slave morality is a concept we've already been discussing. It's an orientation of weakness towards life. and this creates dishonesty and resentment towards oneself and others. Master morality, on the other hand, is oriented towards strength and life affirmation, and this is a perspective that is almost lost in the modern day. These types of people tend to place the highest value on what makes life most vital and free. That is their first principle. The master moralist thinks in terms of what leads to power and flourishing, while the slave moralist thinks in terms of what will lead to the highest equality and safety. The master is looking towards the pinnacle of human achievement and culture, while the slave is looking to make things easy and comfortable at the bottom. For instance, the master aristocrats of ancient Greece did not value safety and excessive comfort, but rather danger and great deeds. They did not pray to escape hardship, but to overcome it heroically, like Heracles performing his 12 impossible labors. To pursue luxury and ease would have been seen as a goal only fit for slaves. These master moralists of ancient Greece promoted values that are totally alien to many soft-handed victim worshippers today. They emphasized qualities that promoted personal power and growth in the celebration of life, and this created an entirely different order of human. Carelessness is a value only of masters, not slaves. Because slaves and peasants are tight, they can't be careless, therefore they see it as evil. Masters, however, are relaxed. The masters I'm speaking of here are not masters of others necessarily, but primarily those who are mastering themselves and seeking the full expression of their inner powers. Nietzsche would argue that the master and slave dynamics still exist within each individual spirit of man. And contrary to popular culture, it is the values of the master that lead to flourishing and true virtue and honesty. You need personal power in order to be truly carefree and virtuous. Without it, you are just like a snake slithering on the ground, while the masters are like eagles flying in the sky where all can see. The interesting thing about courage and power is that it is the only combination that leads to radical honesty. Most of us are lying to ourselves or others in some way because we do not yet have the power to tell the truth boldly. We are scared to lose something or face unpleasantness or lose status, so we hide our instincts and stay ignorant of our own nature. The ancient Persian nobles, however, were brought up to shoot straight and tell the truth. Likewise, the ancient Greek aristocrats called themselves the truthful ones because they had the power to be honest. The mindset of Hippocleides dancing naked on the table is this: I am but vindicating myself from dishonesty. In other words, he wanted something, he did something. That is honesty in the rawest sense, honesty of instinct. And you need honesty of instinct before you can tame your impulses and bring your nature into a harmonious whole. That is Carl Jung's famous idea of shadow work. Quote, a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. If any peoples could have claimed to have gone through the inferno of their wild passions, it was the Bronze Age Greeks. They were on fire with the god of Ares in war, touched by Athena in oration, drunk with Dionysus in wine, and raptured by Aphrodite in love. In many ways, they were a much more free and uninhibited people, just like most of our pagan ancestors in Europe. They rose far above the darkness of mere being. And I would argue this veneration of freedom and the vital life force led to the most highly developed, unique, and virtuous type of person. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Pericles the statesman, Euripides the playwright, Hippocrates, and other titans of philosophy, science, and art emerged from that golden epoch of humanity. The ancient Greeks produced the highest number of exceptional men and women ever seen in one civilization. How? Why? That question deserves much attention. But the thing I find the most fascinating is that the cultural achievements were but footnotes to these men of renown. Aeschylus, the playwright and father of tragedy, wanted his gravestone to only remember him as a warrior. 99% of the philosophers and achievers of the ancient world were warriors, first and foremost. The classical world valued courage and manliness above all in their leaders because they understood that these qualities actually allowed for men to be virtuous. You cannot be virtuous or honest or magnanimous if you are weak and timid. You cannot be fully trusted and respected unless you have the power to be relaxed and truthful. Let's take Elon Musk for example. Love him, hate him, I don't really care. He said F you to all of his biggest Twitter advertisers in a very public interview recently. Why? They tried to control what he said.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself. Go f*** yourself.
Like Hippocleides, he said F you, I just don't care, or something like that. Because of his power, he is in a F you position to basically everyone. He can speak his mind boldly and doesn't care much for what people think. And isn't that radical honesty, if not tinged with arrogance? The only real honesty you'll get from someone or yourself is when you have nothing to lose, or even better, you look upon loss with contempt, as Hippocleides and Elon did. And this aristocratic ideal is something we should strive for. And whether you agree or disagree with Elon, he is an example of a very lost art, that of careless truthfulness. The master aristocrats of the ancient past were free like Elon in some sense. They spoke directly, but they wouldn't have let themselves become a slave to some business venture. They would have burned SpaceX to the ground as a sacrificial offering to Zeus, drinking wine and partying all the while. They valued complete freedom from restriction and sought to make their life into a living artwork worthy of heroic sagas. Hence, carelessness was seen as divine. Hey, thanks for watching Wisdom Warriors. I'm Christian, and if you're ready to turn your life into a heroic saga, it's so important to surround yourself with like-minded men. That's why I started this school community for all the warrior philosophers out there. Also, there's a link in the description below to apply to work with me one-on-one. I'll see you over there. And if not, you can check out this playlist to learn more about ancient Greece, Nietzsche, morality, and all the fun things we talk about here. Peace.